Hi.
Morning, friends. How are
I
you?
keep getting an error telling us we're not live, but Zoom tells me something different. So,
How are you all? Welcome back. We almost didn't make it today. Bella's been headspace in it. She's been doing a course. She's full of stuff. I've been just done 4 nights overnight shifts, and I'm like, haven't my brain hasn't switched on yet. And I said, "Oh, what are we going to talk today about?" And it was like, "Well, I guess we talk about that because we've come through this week. It seems like this last week is like it's like we've this quickening, right? We're in this quickening, and information seems to be coming at us faster and faster, and it just more. It's condensed and it's intense, and it's a really intense time to be here. Um, I said to Belle, have you paid much attention to this week in Australia? There was the most decorated soldier in Australian military history was arrested 17 years after he was on duty in Afghanistan. And I said, have you been following it? And she said, yeah, a little bit, but not enough to really talk about it in depth or anything. And everyone's talking about it. I had a friend the other day say maybe this is the first arrest that shocks the world, and I said no, this isn't the first arrest. This is just like it's almost like a warning in a way to the part of the takeaway from this in Australia seems to be a lot of commentators, and I haven't been watching it too closely either, talking about like if young people are thinking they might want to join the military, it's a real turn off because what do? You go and serve for 20 years or whatever and become the most decorated soldier in Australia's history, and then you get arrested for war crimes 17 years later. It's very confusing, and uh, so I don't know. I haven't, like, again, I haven't. It's a bit like the Desi Freeman thing. I just haven't put my attention onto it much. So, people are still talking about the Desi Freeman thing here. The family saying, oh, some people are saying he's not dead, he's just been taken away, and all this shit. And it's just on top of everything else. It's just such a. Uh, it's too fucking much information. Who else is feeling this today? Because that's what I said. What are we going to talk about? And it's like this overwhelming, too much information, right?
I watched a video this morning. I woke up at
It's like
4 o'clock in the morning and I actually posted it on the echo chamber because it is fantastic. It's by a man called David Bayer. It's 17 minutes. It is worth the watch. And David Bayer is
17 minutes.
David Bayer is the absolute king at distilling complex teachings into very easy to understand language. And the video is around quantum entanglement and how and why that which you put your energy and your focus on comes into your field. So it's worth the watch based on what we're saying today, where we put our energy, where we direct our energy, and what we allow into our field. Because he talks about the quantum field and how things that we're all connected as part of the ocean. I'm going to butcher it, so go and watch what he says. But the premise is we're all connected as part of the ocean, and all of the things that happen are currents of the ocean, like the fear collective thread is a current, and love and peace, they're currents. And what current are you going to align with and how? And it's not metaphysics, it's physics. What he's teaching is proven. It's been proven over and over and over again. So go and watch it at 17 minutes. It's totally worth the watch. It'll be below this video.
Yeah, I caught a Sasha Stone interview last night with somebody, and he was talking. Obviously, he talks about the quantum, all the quantum stuff. And he was saying, like, he's in Mexico. They're building the New Earth project and whatnot. And basically, he was saying, like once all of this, once we get on the other side of this and start rebuilding, he was saying that, like we at the New Earth, we're going to be all right. Like, fuck the rest of you. You haven't paid attention. And I was just like, Christ, that wasn't the message I wanted to hear, right? For those of us that aren't in Sasha's Stone New Earth movement, fuck the rest of you. You're not in the quantum field.
You're not in the chosen, the chosen ones. Bullshit. I'm sorry, this whole 144,000, the chosen ones. Be mindful what you give your attention to. Quantum entanglement. I'm going to direct you to the video again. Please, for the love of humanity, watch it. It's very good.
The other thing is I got halfway through. I was driving home from work this morning and listening to it, and I was just thinking, fuck, what's the point? Like, what's the fucking point of all of this? And he was saying like that, we're moving into a not so much this golden age, but this Luciferian age, right? And he was saying it's a good thing. Lucifer was God's favorite, and when he fell, and I'm thinking, how can Luciferianism be a good thing? What the fuck is going on? Like, it confused me, and I thought I'm not going to be able to sleep, but I did. But it just put this, like, it was like this cloud, of like, well, what is the point? What's the point of all of this? And how do we dig within ourselves to keep moving through it? We've got all of this whole week has just been a shit show.
Remember not to put Sasha on a pedestal.
I don't put Sasha on a pedestal. I used to put Sasha on a pedestal.
And then we went to what was that workshop called we went to?
It was the Quantum Consciousness Convention.
We went to the Quantum Consciousness Convention at Uluru. It was 2021.
2020.
Was it 2020?
It was the solstice of 2020.
It was the solstice of 2020, the year that COVID happened, and Sasha was one of the speakers.
Supposed to be there in flesh,
but he couldn't get there, so he was on a big screen. And Jane, did you ask him if he could marry you?
Yeah, we all got the chance to ask Sasha a question. So I jokingly wrote, "Will you marry me, Sasha?" Because I loved him at the time. And when the guy asked, he went through all the other questions, and he finally got to the last question, just for fun. "Sasha, will you marry me?" And Sasha's immediate response was, "Well, how much money have you got?" And I went, everyone in the room sort of went, "Is that what it's about? Sasha, is that what it's about?"
It talk about, like someone that you love just making one statement and it like, oh, that's really interesting.
It was very weird. So I stopped listening to Sasha for a long time then. Because for that to be an immediate sort of like, and whenever, and this isn't a bash Sasha, because I think Sasha's brilliant. And he has a lot of good stuff to say, really, truly. But, even under the comments in this post is like, is Sasha still ripping people off? Is Sasha still this? Is Sasha still that? There's still this element of Sasha as a...
drifter.
And he's done some incredible things, like the International Justice League or whatever it was, all these things that Sasha set up. And he was talking about how the New Earth movement has set up a new financial system that once this old system collapses, they've got the system already ready to go in place. Now, I don't know how that's going to work, but is that just for his people or is it for the whole world? Anyway, it's big stuff, and it got my head spinning in a way that I really didn't need for it to be spinning last night after all the shit fuckery and nonsense that's been spinning around this week. Even things like with the when Melania came out. Did you see her speech? She got up on the behind the podium, the official US podium, and said, look, basically everything that's Donald and I met, we didn't meet through Epstein for a start. That was a lie. We moved in the same circles, hence there's a few pictures around with Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein. But as far as these pictures that are going around, like her on the stripper pole with Jeffrey Epstein behind her, and her, she said they're all fake, they're all bullshit, and it's got to stop, right? She said she called for the victims of the Epstein crimes to come up before Congress and make statements under oath about Epstein. Now, so as a result of this week, what we're seeing now is this like massive all these pictures of Melania with Epstein, like pictures of her, like pictures that we haven't seen before. They're obviously AI, um, but they're coming out more and more in abundance. Like her kissing Jeffrey and sitting on his knee, and like all this bullshit that it's meant to fuck with our heads, and it works, right? It works if we let it. And like you say, where we put our focus, energy goes where focus, whatever, energy grows where focus flows, right? Or whatever. Um, it's working, friends. It's working to fuck with our heads. And I could only speak for myself, obviously. But I think we do need to step back and just see it for what it is. It's overwhelming. Is anyone else feeling overwhelmed this week? We've got all the Trump and Candace Owens and Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, big, shit show. They're all calling him satanic and
calling Trump satanic.
Yeah.
All of those.
All of those.
I actually saw a social media post today with that whole crew. So Megyn Kelly, Candace Owen, who's that guy with the red hair that does the videos that are really sort of funny?
JD.
Yeah. All of that crew are turning against Trump, and now they're.
I don't think JD is. Well, maybe.
Apparently. Anyway, they're talking about them really being like vessels for the Democrat Party, which I thought was really interesting. Who knows? I don't know, but.
And like speaking of vessels for the Democrat Party, and this isn't necessarily a vessel for a Democrat Party, but this return to this Christian revivalist movement that's going on at the moment. And nothing wrong with that. If you want to go to church, whatnot, knock yourself out. It's not. And I've said this before. I have my own personal relationship with Christ. With God, with this. I'm not a religious person. I think religion is, it's division. I mean, how many wars have we seen in the name of religion? How much argument? Even people within just the Catholic or the Christian religion. There's like 400 different sort of church organizations under that umbrella. How many different under the Muslim faith? There's how many different denominations are there, and the infighting. The Sunni versus the Shia, and this is what's going on in Iran and Iraq, and different Jews, the old Jews, the Zionist Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews. It's that fucking confusing. I mean, I listened to a rabbi this week talking about the evils of Israel and the mentality of Israel and this British created Zionist movement that's only been around for about 150 years. And the things he was saying were quite extraordinary in about the Israeli structure, the Jewish structure within Israel, and how these people, these Zionists, they're not Jews. He was saying that, we hear BB talk about the Amalek, us being the Amalek, like the Goy, that we're less than human sort of thing. Now, this rabbi put a different spin on the word Amalek, and he said Amalek is a person or a group that would take another group away from God. So he said that the Zionist movement led by BB here, BB is the Amalek. He's the one that's come in and removed God from the equation. So within all of these religious structures is this division, is this argument. And then you've got one against the other, and it becomes overwhelming.
I was just looking at our numbers. So it's so interesting. If you guys are watching this and you're enjoying it, please hit the like button, because we've got like 14 people online, which is great. Welcome all 14 of you. But
love you.
Our viewer numbers have gone down and down and down because I think we're hidden and blocked and hiding in the algorithm.
Yeah, which, again, Bella and I have never done this for anything really. We're just having a conversation, and that's what. Like this week, I've been, I focus a lot on the geopolitical stuff because I find it fascinating. But every Monday, pretty much, when it comes to the echo chamber, I'm like, I have this voice in the back of my head that's like, oh, well, who are you to be talking about? You're not offering any information. You're not offering any solution. Like, what's the point of us being here? The point of us being here, and we come back to this repeatedly, is the community that we have found here, and it's just a conversation that we're having. We're not here to break it down.
Give intel.
I'm trying to figure out what it's all about by listening to these fabulous podcasters and the guests that they have on that come in, and it's like this rabbi that comes in and explains the Jewish religion from a different perspective that I've never heard of. But what he was saying as well is, so we're here just for the conversation, and that's it. And like I said before, if we come in here and I'm just like, fuck, it's all too much, that's part of the conversation, because that's part of like what the collective is going through now. But this this rabbi, it was just talking about the mentality of the Israelis, and it's all condensed into the IDF, and how the interviewer asked him whether he thought that Israel would drop nuclear bombs, and he said, without a doubt, if that was where they had no other choice, they absolutely would invoke that Samson option, right? We have the ceasefire this week. After all, we're going to bomb the shit out of, we're going to destroy a culture, which, Trump says these things and does the opposite. It's very interesting to watch Trump and to listen to commentators try and break down the psychology of Trump and how he operates. Because he says things that are so shocking, but it's actually it's the opposite of what he says. So no wonder people are confused. No wonder it's a very intense time to be alive, because there's so much fucking argument. But yeah, this rabbi was, basically saying they've got no soul. They're not human, which I found quite extraordinary.
The Israelis.
Yeah, the Israelis in particular, with I'm not even.
Is he talking about every Israeli or
the ideology of the Israeli mindset? So right. You can't put every single Israeli into the mix there. But knowing that Israel was created through Britain, through the city of London, as a divisive factor in the Middle East. There's just so many different commentators talking about these things from different perspectives, that Israel and Iran are locked at the hip. They're working together. Like, does that make sense? No. It's a lot, right? All these different, we're having a ceasefire, and yet they get to keep bombing. Where does that leave it? Where does that leave it all? The Greater Israel Project, is that an actual thing, or is that just a psychological tool to divide people? We don't know. Nobody fucking knows. If anyone says they know, it's bullshit. They don't know. Then we've got on April Fool's Day, the Artemis 2 supposedly left Earth to go and do a slingshot around the moon and come back. So supposedly these astronauts touched down the other day in the ocean, and they're all alive, which is great. And the little so they're being a little press conference, and the female, I'm sure you've all seen this, the female astronaut talking about her experience of the journey. She's say she was. So we've gone around them. She said, what I found most interesting was just looking at the Earth, tiny little, tiny little thing, out there in the darkness all by itself, just hanging in the universe, just a little ball hanging in the universe. So if that's the case, and we're to believe what NASA tells us, I thought we were a spinning ball moving at 666 million miles an hour through space. I got that number wrong, friends, but you get the drift. Are we to believe what NASA tells us, or are we just like a little ball hanging in space, in the universe, all on its own, just surrounded by darkness? If we've now got an astronaut that's done a slingshot round the moon and she's got to see us from a distance, do we believe her that we're just a little ball, not moving, just sitting there? Do we believe her? Uh, it's a very, very weird time. Do you believe we went around the moon, friends? Do you believe that? There's some people I like a lot that that are pumping this story, and saying how it's giving hope to the young generation. It gives them some hope. You can't buy a house on planet Earth; it's too expensive. Um, it's going to cost you $200,000 to go to university, to become a street sweeper. Um, all of this stuff, and yet, um, there's hope for the young generation that they can go to the moon. For what? For fucking what? Like, can't we fix the little ball hanging in the universe? Can't we fix what's going on here before we start to encourage young children, the young generation, that there's some future in space? Like, the bullshit is overwhelming, right? It's absolutely overwhelming. Um,
I had an interesting exchange with my son recently, and obviously they were doing some talk about Easter and Jesus and the story of Jesus, and my son was talking to me about Jesus, and we had this back and forth, and it became apparent to my son that I had different belief systems than what he was sharing. And he spent the better part of an hour trying to convince me to agree with him. And I said, it's okay that we don't agree, but because I'm his mum and he places me on of high value, he really wanted us to believe the same thing. And he kept all day, he kept coming back to it and coming back to it. And I said, darling, it's okay if we believe something different. But he just kept wanting me to be on his team, to agree with what he agreed with, because this is what he'd been taught as the truth. So trying to share with him that it's going to be his journey in life to decide what's real and what's true for him, just like it's my journey in life and your journey in life to decide what's real and true for you. And only your internal intuition, your discernment, can discern that. And they're doing everything they can to try and get us to not access our intuition and our discernment.
and they're doing their best in the UK. I just heard Rich. Rich does politics, which is a great channel, guys. He does some fantastic interviews. That we get to choose the way we want to live in this world, to raise our children. So in the UK, they're planning on passing a bill that will ban parents from homeschooling their children. Now, excuse me, they know they're losing control of the kids. They know they're losing control of the minds because there is so much fracture. So it's almost working against them, all of this. It's backfiring, right? It's backfiring. You can't homeschool your children. Like, go fuck yourself. In Canada, you want to, you've got a flu and you don't feel so good, you've got an option of suicide. It's just really easy. They make it really, really easy to take the um, the easy way out, right? To end it all now. They're offering suicide to children in Canada. Um, I don't think we have that option here yet in Australia, but we are very closely linked, obviously, to Canada and the other. There are only four eyes now. Where US has left the five eyes. They no longer confer with Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. They're no longer sharing intelligence. So the story goes. And this is the other thing too. all these fucking intelligence agencies uh, that run the world, like these covert operations that they run everything. They run the governments. They run fucking everything, and they all work together. They're not, it's not spy versus spy. It's spy plus spy. They're all in cahoots together, and it's it makes you just want to switch it all. It makes me want to just switch it all off and turn my back on the whole damn thing, because it then it sets up another weird sort of schism. It's kind of like, oh, you can't just turn your back on it all. Then you become a fucking ignoramus, and you're of no value to anybody. I don't know, friends. What do you reckon? Tell me what you think, because it really is tricky. Two niggas who made it the movies argue with Jason Q that he's a pedo and threw Jason off. Yeah, Mike. The Trump as pedophile. I don't think so. I really don't. And I've been on the Trump train since 2016. I haven't jumped off. When it slowed down at a couple of stations along the way, I might have got off and had a ciggy, but I got back on the train. You know what I mean? Um, I don't think he's a pedophile. I don't think Melania was one of Jeffrey Epstein's girls. And, I could be wrong. It doesn't even matter.
But if he was, where was all this footage before, trying to derail Trump's campaign, trying to derail everything? Why come out now? Surely these photos didn't just come out of the woodwork. Someone had these photos if they really existed.
And this is the thing.
Unfortunately, with AI, like, you could literally come up with any prompt you want and put it into AI and it will create the picture in less than 5 seconds. So you can't believe literally anything you see anymore.
No.
Online.
No.
You just can't believe it.
That was the other thing Sasha was saying too about the this artificial intelligence, digital ID, future that the New World Order are promising us. He said it's absolutely going to be part of the paradigm moving forward. There's no escaping it, unless you're in the New Earth Foundation. Unless you're in a part of New Earth, of course, and then you'll be fine. You'll be a sovereign being, and you'll be fine. But
coming back to Sasha, how you said that they're creating like a currency. That's actually the second time I've heard that today, which is so crazy. Because in the video I watched with David Bayer, which I've linked here, he also talks about having just created a currency, a cryptocurrency kind of thing. But he also said as well that it would be for the people in and amongst his community. So some sort of currency. And that, like I said, that's the second time I've heard it with people in the same kind of movement. It's very fascinating.
It is fascinating, and I mean, I think we could go out and create a currency or a coin, and try and. I mean, I don't understand the whole crypto thing in that way. You can just go out and tokenize something and become your own.
Well, the Haktui girl created a coin, right? Based on the backside of the Haktui comment. We've all heard of that. You guys have all seen the Haktui. She created a coin and people lost millions and millions and millions of dollars, and she disappeared into obscurity. So, who got the millions? Where did it go? How does that all work? I don't know.
Who invested in that? Who bought those coins?
No idea. But I watched a Rise and Fall documentary about her and the coin that she created, and it was very interesting. So, how are all these cryptocurrencies going to work? What's it all going to look like? I don't know.
No, I've heard Juan has spoken about the crypto sort of landscape and the coins, and that it's at this point in time it's too early to know which. Like, of all the thousands of coins that have been created up to this point, once all this shakedown of this crypto sort of world and the coins that move into the future, he said there'll probably be between 7 and 10 coins that are actually relevant. So it's it yet to be determined. I'm not particularly involved in the crypto market because it's too confusing for me. I can't.
And not only is it confusing, it's very volatile. So, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down. And, I wouldn't put all your eggs in the crypto basket if you only had a certain amount of money. Like I know people who've taken all their super out and put it into, Bitcoin or gold backed currencies, whatever, and I just think that's insanity, each to their own. But yeah, having your eggs spread across several different lakes is probably a better idea.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit terrified. I don't know how I'd sleep at night if all my money was in crypto. That's a wild ride, that one. Um,
I got a friend and he's put everything on the line, all his money in crypto, and he won't even take a holiday that's got no Wi-Fi because he's like, oh no, I've got to be like, I've got to be able to check my crypto every day. Could you imagine living like that? Just like being so obsessed that you're checking your crypto 10 times a day. I mean, that's no way to live.
that's a roller coaster I don't want to be on. I watched It's a Wonderful Life the other day, the 1940s movie, um, Jimmy Stewart. Uh, Jimmy Stewart, yeah. Um, and it's about community banks, and how the big bank in town sort of wanted to. He owned everything except for this small, community bank, and the character had inherited the bank or the bond and say, or little savings bank from his father, and it wasn't the life he wanted. He wanted to travel. He wanted to go out into the world, and he sort of found himself forced into this situation. Anyway, there was so he ended up getting married. I'm sure most of you have seen this, but and he was stuck in this life, and there was one. It got to the point where his partner had the $8,000 that he needed to put into the bank to keep this business going, um, building and loan uh, little community bank going, and he lost the money. So, and that was what was going to break the if that money wasn't deposited, then the little community bank would collapse. So is it Jimmy Stewart or have I got that name wrong? Does anyone know? I'm going to just call him Jimmy because I'm not sure. But he ended up on the bridge thinking about he can't take it anymore. He's going to commit suicide. So he's standing on the bridge. The angel Clarence comes down from heaven, jumps in the river. So Jimmy jumps into the river to save him. So the angel therefore saved his life. And so then he ran him through all the good things that he's done in his life because he felt like an abject failure. Um, all the good things that he'd done in his life, and it was such a the messages in these movies, these old movies, are so simple and pure. Because I heard a podcast the other day about talking about the banking system as we move forward into the future, and there'll be a return to the community bank so that the bank manager knows who he's dealing with, and how good that is and how that works. Dog, come on, come in. Oh, dog saying hello. Come here. Up. So hello, Zippy. Hello, hello, Echo Chamber. Hello to the Echo Chamber. Hello. And Zev says, I like community banks. I like being involved with my community. Um, so not only return to the community bank, but the values of life. And he couldn't see in that moment of contemplation of suicide the good that he'd done in his community. How many families um, he'd so he said, I wish I'd never been born. So the angel took him into his town, and showed him what it would have been like if he hadn't been born. And so all of these people that he'd helped were in desperate straits, or they'd turned to crime, or life didn't work out the way it had worked out, because he wasn't there. He wasn't there to give them loans, to keep them afloat, to help them out when they needed him. So it turned out like his wife was very worried. So she ran out into the community and said, we need help. So he's come back, and the whole community have come in, and they've all chipped in $2 here, $20 there, $100 here, and saved him and saved the bank. And he was reminded of the good that comes, like the good things that he had done through his career, that it had a positive impact on his community. And it's the values of helping people when they need it. Um, we all rise together, right? Um, so yeah, it's a fabulous movie, friends, and it just reminds us of how community should support each other, um, and that small acts of kindness have big impacts, and the waves that ripple out from that. So that's what's important in this world, and cryptocurrencies are going to take us away from that. Um, and it becomes a different world, and that's fine. I'm not against progress or, you know, but if it takes us away from our humanity and from our connection, then how good can it be? And if we get small communities like the New Earth community saying, well, we're going to be okay, we'll be all right, fuck the rest of you. Well, what does that do to the psyche of, I don't know, the larger community? It's a very, very odd time to be alive, friends. And a reminder again to come back to you know, the central sort of core of who we are, and looking at the rise of uh, the resurgence of um, Catholicism, and Christianity in the US, and that's fine. I'm all up for communities. Um, But if it sets up a division against something else, then how good can it be? Um, what do we rely on at the end of the day? We rely on good deeds, right? We rely on our community, and that's what this is. And I just wanted to say that. So it is a wonderful life. And if you haven't seen that old movie, go and watch it because it's really lovely. Um, Marita Mackay, welcome back from all your travels, my friend. Well done. You've been all over the place. Did anyone see Ursula Vance? Is it Ursula? Not or Ursa? Ursa Vance. What do you guys think of JD Vance? Do you think he's a good guy or a bad guy? What do you think? Because he makes some fabulous speeches. He says a lot of the right things, and yet we see the connections to, the TPUSA thing and all this weird stuff. And
just because people say all the right things doesn't mean behind the scenes that they're doing the right things. That's where it gets tricky. This is where we have to use our discernment.
it's getting harder and harder to use discernment.
It's getting harder and harder. Yes, it is.
Especially when we see him and his wife walking down coming off a plane, and the wind blows, and she's got a baby bump, but it's got this hard ridge around. So it's almost like there's half a baby bump, a hard ridge, and then she goes to grab underneath, and like there's nothing there. And it's like, what are you doing? What the fuck is going on? This movie, right? Because my friend and I watched Wag the Dog again this week because she hadn't seen it. This movie that we're watching, if we can't trust our vice presidents, our presidents, our prime ministers, and all the rest, our leaders,
who can we trust?
Who do we trust? And why are you putting a fake pregnancy bump under it? Like, what is that?
What have you got to gain from that? What's the story behind that?
It's very weird. It's all very fucking weird. But the people in Ireland have fucking had enough of it, friends. Ireland is finding its voice again. This week in Ireland, they've been big. They've basically stopped Ireland from moving all the trucks and the buses and the farmers and the motorcyclists have all gone and blocked all the roads so that Ireland has to stop. Now, this latest movement in Ireland is as a result of petrol. You know, prices of petrol or gas have almost doubled in Ireland, so that the farmers and the buses and everything, it 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 stops moving, and it's like, we're going to stop it from moving. We won't be forced to stop because we can't afford to buy petrol. Um, the people of Ireland are rising up. You've got the military have been sent in now to break these road blockages. And they're threatening the Irish people with, we're going to take your driver's license away if you don't fucking, like, fuck off, you know? If we don't pay a parking fine in Australia, we get the letters. If you don't pay this fine, we're going to take your driver's license.
And you can say you're not going to pay it, but then it becomes a vicious circle because you don't pay your fine, you lose your driver's license. God forbid you have an accident on a road, you don't have a driver's license, you don't have third party insurance, and then it's just a slippery slope. You're straight to jail, right?
Straight to jail.
It's crazy. And, we're coerced and manipulated into this system, and we're all victims of it. And there's nothing we can do about it other than learn to play within the fucking confines of the game.
For the time being, because the game is going to change.
Sure, but the game is rigged.
The game is completely rigged, and it's that government, that mind control, right? It's fucked, right? Luann, JD Vance was switched out a long time ago. He was also involved in a company called Ambrosia, which
I heard of Ambrosia.
adrenochrome. Not only that, and whether this is a new JD or an old JD, for all intents and purposes, we're being shown JD Vance. He's best friends with, I think, what's his name, that from Palantir, the big AI stuff. And yet he talks about, when he gets up on stage or in these, in Europe and stuff, and talking about how we need to return to sovereignty, return to nations not being under the control of a centralized government. And yet the AI future that they're promising us is a centralized system.
What's really interesting is I use AI a lot for my business, and I can pretty much tell you what political party the AI is aligned with based on the information and the answers the AI will give you. It is quite extraordinary. You ask the same question to two different AIs and you get a completely different answer that's very politically motivated. There's one AI I've been using which is great for like infrastructure and helping you with things, but it is so fucking woke. I'm just like, oh my God, this is the wokest AI I've ever connected with. Not all AIs are not alike. It is quite extraordinary.
Maybe AI is the new religion, friends. The new
the amount of conversations I overhear at the beach, the coffee shop, walking at the gym, the amount of people say, I threw it into ChatGPT and I told it that, and it's like, oh my God, like everyone's using it like a fucking counselor and like to prove that they're right. Like, let's say they have an argument with a friend, they drop the whole thing into ChatGPT and like, am I right? It's like crazy that it's just become a way of life for the younger generation especially. But I was speaking to someone recently and her husband became obsessed with AI, ChatGPT. And then I read an article after her telling me about her husband being obsessed with ChatGPT, because obviously my Facebook was listening to me. And the article said that they had a beautiful marriage, and then her husband got obsessed with ChatGPT and started spending 12 hours a day. And then I was talking to a friend at the coffee shop and he told me people are starting to marry their GPTs. I was like, marry? I was like, this is mind blowing. They're marrying GPTs. They're creating custom GPTs and calling it fucking Lucia or Alicia or whatever, and they're getting married.
So is JD Vance Christopher Reeves, or is he, hang on, what was the other one? Paul Walker. Let's take a poll, friends. Who do you think JD?
JD Vance isn't Paul Walker. I'd like to say Paul Walker was a good guy, right? But was he? I don't fucking know. I know what they showed us.
I know. And that's a shit thing, right? Because there are good people, and we're not sure who those good people are anymore. And that really is, I think, one of the hardest things. Like years ago when we started to learn about, who's who in the zoo, right? And all of our idols that started falling, down to the Dalai Lama. I mean, for fuck's sake, right? The Dalai Lama, come on.
Deepak Chopra, there's another big one that just fell recently, and none of the celebrities are talking about Deepak Chopra.
No, well, Sasha actually mentioned Deepak in this little interview as well. And he said, "Oh, Deepak was always very nice to me." He said, "Yes, but Deepak's definitely, been taken down, but he was always very nice to me." So, if someone's very nice to us and yet they're a pedophile,
does that make them very nice, or does that
where
just
does
make
that
them?
leave us?
Does that make them a great illusionist?
Yeah, where does that leave us? There was a thing yesterday. A guy did he's written some sort of looking into like just this focus was on the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and how we all know that Anthony is, likes girls young, right? But he was talking about how a few of the other band members were also, fiddling, kiddie fiddling and stuff as well. And he said, I can no longer support uh, the Red Hot Chili Peppers because they're fucking pedophiles. And like, it's like everyone's a fucking pedophile, right? Who's not a pedophile these days that's been involved in the music industry or the, Hollywood? Uh, um,
No. It's a map.
Oh, a minor attracted person.
They're minor attracted people, friends. That's what they must be called now. That's what they're calling them. Chest feeding, minor attracted persons. We've got all the politically correct terms that they're trying to throw out, these woke.
Speaking of maps, I just watched, it's called Trust Me. It's called The False Prophet. It's on Netflix, and it's almost a follow on from, what is it? There was another documentary series that I watched a while back, and again, it's Netflix, so you're only going to get, so much information out of these things. But it's about the Church of Latter-day Saint, the Mormon Church in Utah, and the leader of the LDS community, and how he got. He had like 30 wives or whatever, but then he was like sleeping with all the children, and he was a major pedophile. So he's in jail. So he got locked up. He's in jail. So he'd been in jail for about 6 years when this Trust Me documentary started to get made. And the documentary makers they didn't set out to make a documentary. They just set out to go, and the woman, she'd been in the Mormon church years ago, and she went there to try and help some of the women that were, left behind, sort of thing, to see what she could do. And then they sort of fell in with this new leader. Can't think of what his name was, but this guy who was putting himself up as the new leader. So he gathered sort of, 20 or 30 wives around him, and then he started. I think his youngest wife was like 10 years old. So they've inadvertently, because he was very egotistical, so he wanted to be filmed. So they got a lot of footage of, and it was false footage, really. They were putting on an act while they were there filming. But what it boiled down to was that the same shit was happening. The pedophilia came back in. There's no one. People who put themselves up on a pedestal as leaders and gurus, can't trust any of them.
Well, actually, I saw someone go down just recently, and I was so shocked because I remember doing one of her workshops many years ago. Because a good friend of mine from America was a big follower of this girl, and her name is Nicole Daedone, and she was the founder of Orgasmic Meditation. It was a sexual wellness company. She's just gone to jail for, fraudulent stuff against all of her staff and all of her forcing people into working for free and sexual manipulation. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And this is a woman. Like it's very interesting that the woman in this case is the perpetrator.
Is it? Are we still shocked that women are perpetrators?
I'm shocked that this particular woman is a perpetrator because she stood for sexual wellness and health and the rise of all women. And really, she was a perpetrator. I mean, yeah, that's mind-blowing to me. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, and this was this whole cult It's the whole cult mentality and how people become brainwashed um, in this cult. There was another one I watched as well. I'm a bit fascinated by the cult stuff at the moment, about this couple that it was a twin flame. It's a twin flame universe, right? And they were offering, join our community. It's only going to cost you, 3,000 US dollars to do 12 months. 12 classes, and then we guarantee that you're going to hook up with your twin flame. So this thing was just insane. Um, and I'm just watching these things thinking how easily, how lonely people are, how vulnerable people are, that they become ensnared in these cults. Um, the Waco thing, Manson, although Manson was a CIA, like that was a creation, uh, and they went on to say that there was something like 450 cults. They're not called cults; they call them religious, you know, associations or whatever. And this is where I don't like people using religion and Christ as, Christ is your savior and all this. Go fuck yourselves. Um, the amount of the amount of cults and shit that use the name of Jesus or Christ or whatever as, you've got to give your life over or you won't be redeemed, you'll end up in hell. Fuck you. um, I don't know, are people are I want to say people are stupid, but they're not necessarily stupid. They're just fucked up. They're mind controlled, and they're lonely, and they can't find connection. And that goes back to this It's a Wonderful Life community connection. There's so much division, um, that people are falling into these cults and giving their whole lives over, um, and they're killing for these cults. And that's what in this into this chat this morning about this return to Christian values and whatnot. It's I think Rich said, "Oh, it's kind of like it's the new punk. It's a rebellion against the woke movement, the green movement, all of these kind of mind control movements that would uh, keep people in a box." Um,
But this shift is very radical. Like I've had a lot of conversations in the last 6 months with people that either know someone or are going through it themselves. This hard, turn towards Jesus. It's a cult in and of itself. Like the way that people are being manipulated and pushed into these really hard, 180-degree turn towards Jesus. They're like it's very fascinating. It's very interesting to see where it's going to go.
it will be interesting to see where it
And
goes.
more power to you. If you love Jesus, if he's your homeboy, you've got a relationship with Jesus, more power to you. For me, it's the complete about face, the surrendering everything you've believed to be true, which is part of awakening. I totally get it. But just being mindful if, you're not, the pendulum's not swinging too far the other way.
Yeah, we step from one cult, one cult into another.
Actually, for those who are interested, I'll share an episode. I actually made a podcast about this recently. It's the spiritual whiplash towards Jesus, where I break down the psychology behind this rapid movement. I'll share it after this video, so it'll be below this video if you want to have a listen. It's about 30 minutes.
One thing, breaking away from that subject, one thing I'm sure of at the moment is that with what's going on the geo stage, is that the British Empire is being broken down, dismantled. Um, I keep hearing these people talk about Trump's relationship with Bibi Netanyahu. Candace came out the other day and made a statement. She said, "Oh, I have to tell this information now that I've been holding on to." And she said that Charlie and Andrew Colvert were with Trump when he received the $100 million from Miriam Adelson. And they said, they watched him receive the check and said, "Thank you very much." And then she was gone, and it was just Andrew, Charlie, and Trump, apparently. And she said, and Trump said to them, to Charlie and Andrew, I'm going to take her money and then I'm going to fuck her over. You know what I mean? And I thought, oh, that's good. Like, I think Candace was putting it out there as like, well, you can't trust Trump. You know, he takes money off the Jews, and then says he's going to fuck them over. It's kind of like, well, that's good, isn't it? Isn't that a good thing, Candace? You're making it look like that's a bad thing. That's, to me, that was like, that's actually not a bad thing. And that his relationship with BB is not what we see. You know, he despises BB, and I learned as well that that BB's wife is a CIA asset. Like, this is how deep all these tendrils go into all of this stuff. Um, it's insane, right? But at the end of the day, the British power structure is being dismantled, and that's a good thing for the world. That's a good thing for the Middle East, and I do believe that what Trump is trying to set up, he's not even trying to set up. He's aware of the bigger picture. The thing, what's going on in the Middle East now, is for nations to return to sovereign status, which that's good. That gets us out of the cult of the British Empire that we've all been under for, since the British, Dutch, East India Company days. This particular situation is 300 years in the making, sort of thing, 400 years in the making. That centralized structure is being broken down, which that's been the shining light for me this week. Is that there's confirmation. There's confirmation of it and this is across the board of commentators that I've been listening to. So that's a good thing. That's a highlight, right? Big picture stuff, small mind stuff, and what's important is those community values and working with each other and supporting each other along the way. So we can leave it there. Do you have any last words, my love?
I do not. Cakes and pies, blessings to you. May your day be filled with joy and happiness, whatever you are doing.
Thanks for joining us, friends. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Went for my mouse then, but